Moving on to state and federal environmental issues. The U.S. government, under the Safe Water Drinking Act, regulates the disposal of produced water and injection of fluids for secondary recovery, but the implementation of this act has been delegated to the states. It is important to note that recently fracking is being increasingly tied to earthquakes. However, most of that is speculation at this point, so there's no real proof of that. The Federal Clean Air Act of 1970 regulates air pollution caused by any factor, any business, including oil and gas operations, but the EPA delegates the regulations for enforcement of this act to the states, and that includes any permitting, inspections, monitoring, and enforcement that has to be done. But what makes Oklahoma key in dealing with state and federal environmental issues is going to be how each state is affected by the Endangered Species Act and having to deal with federal land issues. Oklahoma has the second lowest amount of endangered species in the states that our company is having to consider drilling for projects in. Second, North Dakota has the lowest number. But what makes North Dakota undesirable and what makes you more willing to deal with the endangered species in Oklahoma versus having to go through North Dakota is the unpredictability of the results of the federal land leasing process, because the North Dakota project borders federal lands due to the forestry and Indian lands. But the federal land leasing process is a rather lengthy process, and it's unpredictable. You have to go through the auctions, and there's really no predictability as to how it's going to turn out, or even if you're even going to be successful after you make your investments, in that if you're going to be able to get the lease. Texas and New Mexico each have higher numbers of endangered species that you would have to contend with, especially Texas. They have a number of prominent endangered species right now, including the lesser prairie chicken that has gained some attention that could affect oil and gas development within that state. New Mexico also has a very high number of endangered species to deal with, and they have to deal with the federal land leasing process that I just described. So because Oklahoma has fewer endangered species to deal with, they have a higher probability of success in dealing with the federal regulations. So it makes it a more desirable state to explore and produce oil and natural gas in.